Alright, and here on our news it says, here's what would happen to billions of XRP and Ripple escrow if Clarity Act is passed. Now, try to picture this. Imagine a world where the US government holds billions of XRP in its own vaults, using it to back a brand new digital global reserve currency. It sounds like something straight out of a political thriller movie, right? But following a massive viral breakdown on X by a crypto commentator, LunaLuna, this exact scenario is being debated across the entire financial world. Right now, the Clarity Act is making its way through the halls of Congress, and it is completely rewriting the rules of the crypto landscape. Most people are just talking about simple price pumps or retail regulations. However, this new theory goes all the way to the top, straight to the International Monetary Fund or the IMF. Now, what is actually going to happen to the billions of XRP currently locked up in Ripple's escrow accounts once this law passes? Are we looking at a mandatory government takeover of supply, or is there a hidden loophole that changes everything? So let's pull back the curtain and look at what is happening behind the scenes. So, let's start with our very first question. Will the 20% escrow rule force Ripple to give up supply? So let's start with the foundation of this wild theory. According to the breakdown shared here by crypto commentator LunaLuna, the upcoming Clarity Act introduces a very specific rule regarding supply ownership. The post points out that for any digital asset to completely avoid being classified as a security, the founding company must hold less than 20% of the asset's total circulating supply. Since Ripple famously holds a massive chunk of XRP locked up in monthly escrow, this 20% ceiling presents a unique dilemma. To stay compliant and keep that precious commodity status, LunaLuna argues that Ripple might actually transfer a massive portion of its escrowed holdings directly to the US government. Now, here's my opinion. When I look at this as a market observer, the idea of a private company handing over billions of dollars in digital assets to a sovereign government sounds incredibly radical, but it highlights just how deep the structural changes of this bill really go. If the 20% rule is strictly enforced, Ripple has to do something with that excess escrow. Transferring it to a government entity would instantly create the ultimate institutional alliance, making the asset completely untouchable by hostile regulators. Now, our next question is, does the spot ETF loophole make the escrow issue pointless? The crypto community didn't just sit back and accept this theory without looking at the fine print. Another prominent figure in the space, CryptoSensei right here, immediately pushed back with a vital counter-argument based on the actual draft of the Clarity Act. CryptoSensei noted that the Senate's current draft contains a built-in rule that might make the entire security debate irrelevant for XRP. According to the draft, any crypto asset that already had a live spot ETF running by January 1, 2026 automatically qualifies as a digital commodity. It completely bypasses the standard, grueling, mature blockchain certification process. Since XRP spot ETFs successfully launched back in November 2025, XRP fits into this protective rule perfectly. Now, Here's my opinion to this. This is where the real chess match is played. So in my view, the ETF provision is a massive safety net that the broader market is completely ignoring. If the asset is already legally deemed a commodity because of its 2025 ETF approval, Ripple might not be under any pressure to dump its escrow or hand it over to the state. The legal battle is already won before the bill even goes to a final vote. Now, can the IMF actually use XRP as a global reserve asset? This is where LunaLuna's theory takes a fascinating turn into macroeconomics. The bottleneck suggests that the IMF can only officially adopt and utilize financial assets that a sovereign nation has adopted first. Therefore, if the US government takes ownership of Ripple's excess XRP to satisfy the 20% rule, that condition is suddenly met. From there, the theory suggests the IMF would gain the authority to value and utilize XRP as a global reserve tool, placing it at the very top of institutional finance. Now, here's my opinion. This concept is mind-blowing, but we have to separate heavy speculation from reality. As a market observer, I find it highly entertaining, but we have to look at how international organizations actually operate. Other commentators have rightly pointed out that the Clarity Act text doesn't actually say anything about giving assets to the government. Furthermore, CryptoSensei again raised a solid technical point. The IMF doesn't just handpick individual external assets and set their global prices. Now, what is the connection between XRP and the E-SDR framework? To truly understand what the community is debating, we have to look at a concept called the SDR, or Special Drawing Right. Created by the IMF way back in 1969, the SDR acts as an international reserve asset and a unit of account, backed by a basket of 5 major fiat currencies. With the financial world moving toward digital infrastructure, there is a lot of talk about creating an E-SDR, a fully digital version of this global reserve unit. LunaLuna's thesis positions XRP as the perfect technological framework to fill this E-SDR rule, acting as the ultimate bridge currency for central banks worldwide. Now, here's my opinion. Even though critics point out that the IMF currently values the SDR using strictly fiat currencies and that XRP isn't in that basket, the fact that these conversations are happening at all is a massive win. So as a market observer, this tells me that the narrative around XRP has permanently shifted. People are no longer viewing it as just another volatile coin on a retail exchange. They are looking at it as a piece of institutional infrastructure capable of handling sovereign level wealth distribution. And finally, here's our overall conclusion. When we weigh the viral theories against the actual technical structure of the market, the clearer picture begins to emerge. While the idea of the IMF directly setting the price of XRP remains a highly speculative long shot, the underlying mechanics of the Clarity Act are very real. The value of XRP will always be determined by open market dynamics, network liquidity, and sovereign policy, not by a central IMF directive. However, the pressure on Ripple's escrow and the protections provided by the 2025 ETF rule show that a major institutional shift is absolutely locked in for the near future. The intense debate sparked by LunaLuna and analyzed by CryptoSensei proves one major thing. The upcoming passage of the Clarity Act is forcing everyone to rethink the limits of digital assets. While the extreme theories of immediate government ownership and IMF price setting contains significant structural gaps, they highlight the unmatched global utility of the XRP ledger. Ultimately, whether through a strict 20% escrow adjustment or the automatic commodity status gained from its November 2025 ETF launch, XRP is being firmly integrated into the future of compliant global finance. The true value won't come from a cartoon or a myth, but from real-world sovereign adoption and institutional utility. And this finally ends our video. Thank you very much for watching and see you on the next one. Or you might just as well check this recommended video right here.